Greetings and salutations to everybody. Thank you for joining us back for another great episode of the No Scripts podcast. I'm your host, of course, Keir Scott, here to bring you another dope week of the podcast. I want to say thank you to everybody who has been tuning in this far. Thank you for subscribing, liking the videos. Please continue to do so. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for notification. If you're on any other platform, feel free to like the video, leave comments, let us know what you think, and also share that video as well so other people can be in tune with the content. Thank you for all the guests that have come out so far. The future guests joining the show, I just want to say thank you to you all. Today, I have a very special guest joining us, a beautiful young lady. Her name is Charisse. She is a young lady of many talents. She is a poet. She is a performer. She has a passion for film and music. And you can also go online right now to poetbynature.com, BYNATURE.com. And you can check out her project. It's like a poem album where she has some instrumentation behind it. She actually co-produced the project as well. It's an incredible body of work. I'm super glad to be able to sit down with her and just dive into her thought process as getting into so many different things and so many different avenues. I thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back shortly. I'll be inviting her in here. I just want to say again, thank you guys for all tuning in thus far. Appreciate it. All right, all right. Hello there. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm excited about feeling good. How are you today?
Listen, I'm excited to have you here. I am
Oh,
definitely intrigued and interested in getting into the mind of everything going on. I've had this idea for a while and wanting to sit down and speak with you. So I definitely thank you for the time.
oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I see you got merch out now. No Scripts Podcast, y'all.
No Script Podcast is definitely in the works right now. I'm not selling any merch. It's kind of just an idea, kind of the brand. So when you see the shirt, you kind of think of me. But it's
Definitely.
something that I do want to get involved in. And as far as selling the merch, I like the ambiance behind you. You look very tranquil and peaceful. I
Thank
like
you.
it.
Yeah. It's a vibe thing, you know. You gotta keep like the high vibrations around you.
Definitely, I'm working on that. You see, I got the real bright lights behind me. I gotta work on that. I guess as it come as I go along, I'll get what I feel comfortable in. Right now, this is a real comfortable space for me, and
Yeah,
yours looks
exactly.
comfortable.
And the vibes are coming from you, you know, because you're comfortable and you got the sky in the background. Like, how can you be mad with that view? It's nice.
That's what I'm trying to say. That the point of that is it's like the skies is the limit and the city is
Yeah.
behind me. That's how I look at it. You might be the first person to peep that actually. So I mean, that's a couple points right there. Nobody else ever even pointed that out, man.
Listen. So I'm born and raised in New York, but I moved out to Connecticut. So like any type of reference for home, like I kind of jump on it a little bit more because like New Yorkers we're very prideful, So
Listen,
any little thing is just like, and why we see why
exactly. Exactly. I see a TV show or a movie, and the setting is in New York. I'm like, come on, what better place than New York? Of course, it has to be, right?
yeah, Bryant Park like blowouts and stuff like that. Or
Yep, for
now they
sure.
be up in like I want to say they be up in like Washington Heights talking like, oh yeah, Columbus Square. It's just like, all right, all right, I'll let you have it.
Totally, totally. So usually when I start the show off, one of the first things I like to ask my guests is just how was your mental health and your mental space through COVID right now? I know that it being a different time that we're in, where
Yeah,
mental health is at the forefront, which I feel like it definitely should be because it's important. It's not still not talked about enough.
yeah.
So I do like to just touch on that a little bit. Like, how is your mental space and how's everybody doing through COVID on your
Yo,
side?
it's been a roller coaster. I'm not gonna lie because it's like for me, I'm an artist, so like my emotions is part of my work,
Mhm.
and starting from March, like I went from working 7 days a week and going
Oh
here
wow.
and there and everywhere to like I actually had to stay home. And like I'm a homebody, so like I didn't really mind it at first, but little by little the creeping kind of pessimism from like, oh my God, we have all these cases today, and like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be worse today, and like it's going along with like the paranoia, and one of my friends articulated it well. She said like, you looking at your friend like they're a virus, you
Yeah.
know.
Wow.
So it's
Interesting.
kind
Yeah.
of, yeah, it's kind of like cutting into how comfortable you can be, along with things within your control. So that has been like a mental lesson, just really, it's the serenity prayer, really having the, you need to understand what's in your control, what's out of your control, and just
Hmm.
like be able to keep your peace through everything. So
Mm,
my mental emotional is, it's definitely been a roller coaster, but it's been like an arena in the sense that I could come in and I could practice and I could really develop like the skills that I need, because in the same breath, like I received a lot more opportunity being at home, like with the online like workforce, than I would have, slept into to Brooklyn and the Bronx and Queens and Stanford and Bridgeport. Like,
yep.
it was a lot that I was able to do with this kind of like transcended hybrid market.
Interesting. I like one of the points that you brought up. I like that you say control and learning to like learning what you can control and cannot control. I think that's one of the bigger things I've myself has kind of learned in this whole time. It's like what I can and cannot control. I've been at home a lot more, so it gives me more time to put my focus and my energy on certain things and what I can control. But that is for sure interesting. And the fact that you said that you feel like you have more opportunities just being able to work from home is definitely interesting. I feel like moving forward, it's going to be a different space. It's not going to be a lot more public and in your face kind of events, more virtual things going on. So it's kind of something we will have to get adjusted to over time. It's interesting. I'm interested to see what the next 12 months hold up because we already seen the last 9, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah. And, my birthday's coming up. So, my
okay, happy
plans,
early birthday.
yeah, yeah. So my plans obviously are gonna change, right? So
Yep.
last year I hosted an event, like I hosted the book launch. So I rented out like a bar space in Brooklyn, and I invited people to come up and perform, and like I had a live band kind of follow me with the melody of my own poetry performances. And
Okay, got you.
yeah, so I naturally wanted to follow up again this year, but it's obviously not the same on Zoom, because
Yeah.
the vibe you feel with that live music, and just having people speak out, their passion into their art,
Yep.
it's different when you got like connectivity issues and like everyone's their own little square. So there's definitely changes in that way,
Hmm.
and then there are some exceptions where you have, I think, like at this point it's like 10 people or less in this space, and
Yeah.
everything like that. But I think a highlight really, as you know backtracking from March going into like May and June and July and everything, is I met a lot of people online. Like a lot of people had their Zoom open mics or their Instagram slams, and you're meeting like artists that are tuning in from like Africa, and
Oh wow.
in Ghana, because someone that they followed is going live with someone else like in the
Hmm.
States, and even people that are calling in from like different places in Europe, different places in Canada, different places in South America. It really got the community on like a whole nother platform where they're just like, oh wait, like you're telling me I can do 3 different shows like at home
Right.
and
That
meet
is
all
pretty
these
interesting.
different audiences? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I
You know,
like it. I
yeah,
like that.
yeah. So even for me, as like I teach after school programs.
Okay.
So earlier in the year, that was the 5 of my 7 days is going into different schools. So that of course changed course because it happened towards the end of the school year. So here we are in a new school year, and I'm placed with these new schools, and
Hmm.
I'm teaching like chess online, and I never
Okay.
thought I would have to. I never thought I would need to like adapt chess for online, but like it's really working with these sixth graders.
That's pretty
you know?
awesome for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Education is for sure important. I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure it's not easy for a young kid who probably already is not the most attentive if you had them in a classroom to now
Right.
be online where they have so many things at home going on and they're trying to pay attention. I'm sure that could be a little bit of a distraction for them. So to be able to adjust just for them, not including us as far as adults, but for the children, has to be a for sure challenge. And I'm interested, like I said, I'm interested to see how that holds up. As far as the events that were going on, did you have the opportunity to perform at any of those? I know you said that you were
Oh,
checking out a couple of them.
definitely. Yeah, every day
Okay,
I was performing. It got to a point where honestly like it got a little overwhelming
really?
because you can have let's say like the Instagram platform itself was getting overwhelmed
Hmm.
because you don't really expect like users from all over the world to be on the same show like for hours on end and
Mm,
it had that clear connection throughout the thing. So we were learning that like Instagram kicks you off of live every hour. We're
yep.
learning that some people's like services just aren't that great, or some phones itself isn't that great. So I remember there was times when I would spend like 3 hours or 4 hours like waiting to go up and do like my 3 minute poem, and then it's just like it it kind of took away, you
Yeah.
know it's you're moving away from that happy balance of like in person and virtual, because of again those emotions. And it comes
Yep.
up, and you would hear some people that like they were waiting for hours and they never got called up because for whatever reason their request didn't get sent in, or the host
Okay.
wasn't communicating, or they're they were accepted into the line and their phone wouldn't receive that like share live function. Like there were
Yep.
so many things. And then after a while, it's just like, all right, I kind of need to get back into this idea of what solitude means for me,
Okay.
because that goes back to me being a homebody, right? Like there's things that like I like to keep around me, energy, a vibe that I like to keep around me that can get tainted with like, system overload, sensory overloads, whatever,
Hmm.
whatever.
Okay.
So, I was definitely performing for a while. And then I want to say when I think around the George Floyd riots,
Hmm.
I had to kind of like take a step back because
Okay.
like it affected me very viscerally. And I'm also a private person. So when it comes to my political views, when it comes to my revolutionary spirit, when it comes to a lot of things that I use to really connect with my community, sometimes I just couldn't have that online. Like
Got you.
I felt better having that with people I was physically in that same space with.
Hmm.
So, I kind of just I switched my attention, from performing like as much on lives, and then even going back and like performing more like political pieces, because like
Okay.
revolutionary music, revolutionary art, like you know art and the movement is it yo they're merged, you know
Mm,
like. And after a while I'm just like I can't be a I can't commit a lot of my art online as much as I wanted to. At this point, it's just like, yo, I need to get back into like making sure I'm good.
Okay.
because when the riots started happening, and then I'm on Instagram, and then I see this person's album and that person's merchandise, and like, oh no, another person that has melanin just like me is killed, like,
Mhm.
in such a malicious way. Oh wait, but it's
Yes,
also
definitely
someone else's
enough.
birthday. And then it, like, I had to, I feel like I kind of had to preserve my sensitivity a little bit.
Yep, I definitely understand you on that one. Yeah, for sure. I know for myself, when it came to the video of the George Floyd, I still haven't even seen the entire video. I don't watch a lot. I don't really watch any of them only because, like you said, like I don't want to. I don't want to watch continuously watch these things, and
Yeah,
and God forbid it happens in front of me, and I'm almost like desensitized because I've seen it so many times over and over and over again. It's almost like kind of like the norm. So
yeah,
in my mind, I'm like, I don't ever want to become desensitized to. I don't know if I ever will, but I don't even want to try to. And I think that just watching those visuals for me would definitely hurt my spirit. So I didn't even want to watch it. I just know the outcome, unfortunately, is somebody lost their life. You don't have to watch the video to know exactly what happened. At least not for me. The outcome is just somebody lost their life that didn't need to. So I can totally understand that. And social media will take away from a lot of that because, like you said, the birthdays, people dropping albums, people dropping merchandise. There's so much new information every single day getting added on to social media that one thing that happens in a moment can be gone tomorrow and nobody talks about it unless it's something that stays continuously in the circle of social media or the circle of whoever it is that you speak with or connect with, still talking about it. So it's definitely it can definitely become a lot and overwhelming. Yeah.
yeah. For me, it also, it comes back again to those emotions, and protecting them, and nurturing them, and really, really working with them, because seeing all of these atrocities happening to, like, people because they have melanin,
Yep.
in them, and because they might be feared or misunderstood, or at the wrong place at the wrong at the wrong time, having all of that, and then your takeaway is like, oh my god, that's horrible, oh my god, that affected me, like, oh my god, that derailed what I'm supposed to be doing at the moment. And
Mhm.
it's not to say that it's a distraction, because this is a humanitarian issue.
Yep.
It's a worldwide, history old issue.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to come off social media because I'm like, well, what am I going to do about it? You know what I mean? Because I can share, I can like, I can comment, I can save, I can talk about it, and I can, whether that be talking to someone that agrees with me, or speaking to someone that, would rather argue, with their own point. It's just like, all right, but like, what are we as a community, like, going to take a step back and then do?
Yep.
And I found, I that's why I kind of like, I had to zip off of social media for a while, because granted, like, people are out there and they're doing, and we all have different ways of, like, of our own protests. Some people is being out there with their signs, in the streets. And for other people, it's being in those, like, closed door meetings in which our community leaders are, making these calls for, like, for their groups, for their respective communities, for their tribes.
Hmm.
And for me, I was just like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I I know that with the with social media, and it becoming more of like a this mental habit that we have, to every couple of minutes or whatever, like, checking in and seeing what people are doing, and just kind of recording with our eyes, and really having those, like, snapshots just, like, kind of saved, like, somewhere in our psyche. It just became so diluted. So after a while, I'm like, you know what? I think that, what do I want to learn? How can I better contribute to my society? What is it that like I feel is part of my legacy, what's part of my fight, what's part of my protest, and a lot of that has to do with like self-education. Like also during the pandemic, yoga yoga certifications became adapted for online,
Hmm.
and I had been practicing yoga for about 6 years, and yoga has been something that like I could bring into a room full of people that don't really know each other and have people connect over it, and I've done that quite a few times, enough for me to be like, what, I think this is something that I should be like putting more into. I should put more time, put more like knowledge, put more connections into, because
Okay.
it also gets back to our peace, our vibes, our energy, our higher self, that connection to, you know, us doing right by ourselves so we can do right by other people.
I got you. I like it for sure.
Yeah. So,
Definitely.
mhm.
No, I was just gonna say, even with my platform and what I do, I feel like it's very important if you're gonna be in front of people, speaking to people, and presenting something. I personally think it's important to give people the right amount of information or as much information as I can possibly do. So I even for myself, I do want to take action because that's something I always think about is seeing these things happening and how can I make a difference, make a change, whether it is speaking to somebody and bringing a topic or an issue to the forefront and being further educated on it. And that's something I want to do. I'm trying to get definitely some local leaders and people that are the voice for us and the voiceless that I can get them on my platform and have conversation with them and ask them questions so that the people that tune in can be more involved and more educated with the things that are going on. That is definitely an action I look to take moving forward. So yeah, definitely. I feel you on that one as far as just what can I do to make a difference. I feel for these things. I'm passionate about it, but it's like, what can I personally do to make some kind of difference? 'Cause I don't want to just watch it and talk about it because, what does that do? Try to be the change
Yeah,
that you want to see. So I
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
respect that.
And really understanding like ourselves as individuals, ourselves as like, okay, we want to be the change, but like who are we to begin with? And what do we want to change into on like an individual basis? That's another thing that the pandemic really brought into my life is being able to really spend these months like at home with my partner and just like work on ourselves. You know what I
Yep,
mean? Like
definitely.
it's the perfect time to put everything out on the table and just be like, okay, um, I don't want this, you don't want that. We want to retain this, but you also want to work on that. This also aligns with this. So, like, how can we just make sure that everything is like, you know, pandemic proof?
Okay. Definitely
That's
understood.
really, it is really what it came down to. I appreciate the fact that like my work in the schools and like with this next generation, like I'm glad that that wasn't severed
Yep.
because now everyone's online, which is in my opinion a little more beneficial because I have smaller classes, which
Okay.
means like, I easily went from a room with um, 17, 18 little kids, and let's say about two-thirds of them had problems with either each other, themselves, or the whole situation.
Hmm.
So, it was a lot of time kind of just like maintaining that safe space for them to like be themselves, and have this opportunity after school to grow and take the time that they need, before they go home and be like, you know the older sibling that has to help take care of everything,
Yeah.
or go home and be maybe like that only child that only connects to the kids at school. Like, you know everyone is going through stuff, and considering that like we all we're kind of just like back in our homes, we don't know what home looks for everybody, you know.
True. That is true.
So having still having like these online spaces for like myself, my students, and the company, the leadership program that I work with, you know, the fact that we're still able to maintain these connections and give these kids like the spaces to like develop their own skills into being like a leader, you know, the leadership program. So you obviously want to build in some of those like characteristics that you want to take into your community. So having that kind of like transfer online and really making itself like pandemic proof, if you will, has
Mhm.
been another, it's a learning curve, you know, because there's also like us being, I guess, responsible and present online. Because, like you said, it's easy, you know, it's easy to get distracted.
For sure.
You know,
That
and
is
in addition to like resources too, because not everyone has a laptop, not everyone has internet, not everyone has a space, not everyone has a quiet time.
yeah.
So
It's not, yeah. I feel like some of those things we definitely we take for granted, assuming that we all have them for sure. That you're right. I never thought about that, but when you put it like that, that does make a lot of sense for sure. Yeah. So I do want to go back a little bit. Let's go back kind of towards like the beginning. So I know you started out like in theater and acting. So take us back to that. Like how did that process start to then get us into the transition with the music and poetry?
yeah, goodness. All right. So I was I was 5 years old and I decided I was in my bedroom. Well, I shared a room with my sister, but she was somewhere else. I was like, listen, I said to myself, self, the only way you're gonna be happy is if you're gonna be an actress or you're gonna be a singer. So I was like, all right, self. Well, I think learning lines is easier than writing songs. So we
Mhm.
want to be an actress, you know? And I went through middle school like with this like I have to be an actress. That's how like that's what it's going to be. And then you know, I get to high school and I got more serious. You know, that's when I joined Reader's Theater and TYT, and I was like singing and acting and dancing. And I realized that, you know, it was something that made me feel it's natural. You know, it was just in me. Like my dad's a jazz musician. My mom raised me on Motown. Like, you know, I have like actors and dancers and writers and like people like in my family that, you know, share their gifts in this way. So it wasn't until I got rejected from acting conservatories
Oh wow.
as I was like transitioning into college, and I like, you know, that was my rock bottom in my teenage years. Like, you know, like this is something that I've been gunning for like the majority of my life. You know, like everyone knew me as like, you know, Charisse the actor, and like we know what she wants to do and everything like that.
Mhm.
So, and like I was cocky, like I thought I was like great. So, you know, I'm getting these rejections and it's not computing. It makes no sense. Like I felt like I had all this lost purpose and everything like that. But
Mhm.
you know, I knew I liked film. You know, I'd always been like a Disney kid because like the music and the animation and like everything about it, it is like I like the magical aspect of it.
Got you.
So you know, I'm switching majors and trying all these other things at the college I purchased, you know, when I decided to go into liberal studies. And then yeah, I talked to my dad. I'm like, yo, dad, I'm not acting. I'm not making film. Like, I'm not interested in some of these classes. I'm gonna just drop out. I'm already a waitress. Like, I'm just gonna be the waitress actress that, you know, you all know and love.
Oh
And then
wow.
he was
Okay.
like, yo, just talk to your counselor. You know, like I was midway through my second year. I was putting myself through college. So it's like everything that I dished out, like, you know, it's to show for what. So my counselor was like, "Oh, well, you could actually graduate early, because of all the credits you have." I was like, "Oh, word, that's all I'll do. I'll get my liberal studies degree. I'll graduate early. I'll keep it pushing." So I did, and then I became part of the off Broadway world. So
Okay.
I auditioned for a repertory theater, and we were doing shows, and we had different like smaller showcases, and this is in uh that back in 2013. So
Okay.
I did the show Othello the Panther at their Norican Poets Cafe in February 2014 for the whole month, and I, I liked it. I was like, all right, great. This like I'm here. Like I moved back from Westchester to be in the city, and I was like, living the dream, building it up or whatever like that. But I'm just like, yo, I can't like I'm not just happy being an actor. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I like to write. I have these ideas and stuff like that, and it's someone else's script, that I'm adapting to be my own. At the time, I had just lost one of my cousins, my dad's cousin, and I found out that she had novels after she passed, and it was like shortly after, and she died suddenly. She was on her way to write another novel, and when she goes write a novel, she goes to Spain. She asks someone to contact her, and she died of a heart attack before she left.
Oh, wow.
So it it shocked the whole family because she was amazing. It's like, what do you mean she just passed away? Like she's not here anymore. But like shortly after she passed, like I don't know what it was, but I like her spirit planted her seed of gift of words, and it just kind of like you know grew a little bit more with some of the seeds that were already starting to sprout within me, and just like I found my connection to poetry shortly after that. So by the time I stepped away from acting, I was transitioning from one hospitality job to another hospitality job. I was moving from one borough to the next, and I just ended a romance, and like everything that I kind of like had set up in my life was like falling apart and breaking down. And I'm just like, well, I got bars now. so like I had poetry and yoga to kind of like take me through that, and then I had a friend, uh Devontae Lewis, and we went to high school together. We were in the acting program together, and then he had invited me to this open mic like randomly in Harlem, and I took a few of my like poems that I had been kind of writing shortly after my cousin Barbara died, and just to kind of like get me through a lot of just kind of like heartbreak and sadness. And it was well received, and I had the acting skill to back it up, and I kept it going, and people kept on inviting me back and encouraging me, and it just kind of like took its time to grow. So a few years later, no, that it was later on that year. So um by this time we're in 2014,
Mhm.
and I started writing poetry, and I had a friend, Brian Oscar, who's out in Detroit, and he's a leader of a production house. So he's a DJ, and he's a rapper, and he's a producer, and he's an engineer, and he's a visual artist, and
Okay.
right, he does everything.
Many,
And
many talents.
yeah. So he was like, do you want to sing? I was like, yeah, I want to sing. Sure. So like he gave me a couple of covers or whatever, and it like it hadn't really like latched, but when he put on a couple of beats and had me write some poems, and then we put those two together, we looked at each other like, yo, ah. This is
You
it.
got something. You got something.
It. Yeah. So like he produced my first EP when I said, all right, I got these five little poems and I'm gonna put them together. And he created some visuals for me, and we got this SoundCloud popping, and it's like, all right, cool, we got something going on.
For
You
sure,
know?
definitely.
Yeah, so years later, the catalog continues to grow. And now it got to a book. And then I met another producer who also went to Woodlands, C Wanda.
Yep.
So like we met up at an open mic, and he was like, oh yeah, he went up there, he played some beats, and then he goes, yeah, I'm looking for collaborators, I can do like shows and albums, and he said audiobooks. I'm just like, huh. It kind of
Mhm.
went back to what Brian had kind of like introduced to me with having, my music and the poetry.
Definitely.
So here we are. By the time Siwanda and I met, that was, I want to say, about 5 years later. You know,
Okay.
so I had way more stuff to score. At this point, I had like a manuscript for a book, and I'm like, you know what? He said audiobook. We're doing the audiobook. Like,
Let's do
so
it.
it's like I want to say about an hour and a half worth of poetry. And this is the first time that like I really sat down with somebody else to like produce, and
Hmm.
like having these like you know hearing these little like patterns in your head, and then having these ideas with like instruments that you just want to kind of like try it out, or like like timing and stuff, or measures that you've heard on different jingles or whatever, and just kind of like matching that along with pardon me, matching that along with like my original work,
Hmm.
and like he scores like he's done people's like musical projects and stuff, but he also scores like film and television. So like
Okay.
the whole storytelling of scoring has that element in there, along with myself and the whole like coming from theater performance, but also having my experiences as a production assistant working on different films, you
Got you.
know and even as like myself as a Disney kid, just loving just that allure of what happens when the writing plus the visuals plus the audio just kind of come together, and like what does that create, like what impact does that have, like for how many days after you experience that art are you going to be singing that in your head, are you
Yep.
going to be associating that with like a positive memory, or like a moment that's going to like keep you on the up and up, like all of this is what is one of the things that I love about life. It's what I'm called to do, what I'm called to work on. It's is part of my legacy. I'm called to the arts. So being able to take it from, me deciding when I was 5, like how what I thought happiness was,
Hmm.
and how to obtain it at that point. And then, going through, my academic career trying to attain it, and then unexpectedly not getting it.
Hmm.
And then having to like switch gears. And then now, I'm an adult. Now I'm not on college campus. I'm not on some type of class schedule. I'm on like, you know, like there is no plan B.
This is it. We going full throttle
Yeah.
as it is. So we can't. It's either be successful or be successful. I don't have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically. And
Mm.
for me, like I I have other family members that went out and pursued this, you know,
Hmm.
but everyone's different. Yeah, everyone has their own career. Everyone has their own, support system, but also areas for like self-criticism. And
Hmm.
in that comes their own, you know, work that they need to do with their own confidence, with their own, like trajectory. Like I can't live out anyone else's dreams but the ones I have for my own.
Yeah, that is definitely true. And I feel like we a lot of the times we try to measure our success off the success that we see from somebody else, and that's when our goal and our plan loses its course because you're trying to balance what your success is or with what you're doing or what you see somebody else doing instead of just taking your own course and riding your, you know what I mean, riding it out. Your route to plan A may not be the next person's route to plan A, but I feel like we're looking at their route and we're like, well, we should be going that same exact way, but it's like, no, that's not your course. And that's
Yeah,
something that we all got to keep in mind. Like, just because we see somebody else doing something does not mean it's your course. You want to get to the same destination, but the travel and the road to get there is not going to be the same.
right.
And that's, you know what I mean. And I feel like if we understand us understanding that is how we keep our sanity or some sort of our sanity. You know what I mean, just by keeping that recollection. Like, listen, this is my path. I got to go this way. I got to do it this way.
A
You
hundred
know.
percent. Um, have you seen the movie Head of State?
Yes, a long time ago though. That's an older movie, right? Yes,
yo,
I have.
yo, that's my jam, right? So at some point in the movie, the Chris Rock's love interest is just like, you know what, baby, you just gotta run your course. Just like my daddy used to tell me, all the horses got their own blinders. You just gotta keep on your blinders and run your race. Like
Hmm.
that comes up
Yeah,
a lot of times in my head, partially because like I like the comedy of Chris Rock and Bertie Mac, rest his soul,
for
but
sure.
also because it's like that's a comedic moment to have in your life when you stressing out as an artist and you trying to compare yourself to like, oh my god, but this person doing da 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 da. It's just like, you know, you gotta catch yourself when you having it, or
Hmm.
at least like when you have enough time to just be like, oh, hey, all right, does this help my greater purpose?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Let me just turn around real quick. You know?
Get back on my course.
Yeah, yeah. So that's another thing that has been another theme kind of brought to life. You know, this year in particular. This year is crazy, and I appreciate the fact that we're nearing the end. You
Hmm.
know, and then there's this big thing about uh Saturn and Jupiter having their, I think they're conjuncting tomorrow, if that's the right way to say it.
I heard a little bit about it. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, so there's gonna be a lot of changes tomorrow, and at the end of the day, on the level for astrology, um where that rigid type of rules and regulations energy is going to meet with the visualizing and that whole like bigger open mind type of energy, and it's going to be the start of the winter officially.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I was watching this video earlier today about this young lady saying, relating it to Christmas, and
Okay.
Jesus Christ, and different countries celebrate like the day of his birth, on different days.
Hmm.
Generally is December 25th, but what the lady was saying is that thousands of years ago when it happened, it's not about the actual date more so than like the planetary alignments that were happening with like the vibrations that are coming from these planets in our solar system and how it affects here energy and life on earth,
Hmm.
and in terms of like what those two planets and their alignment does to like leadership and changing and personality and career, and really what it means to make a change, in general, just to kind of like finish off this year and officially go into the winter season, and then Christmas again is going to be next month. I mean, next week. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's all been jumbled. I know what you meant.
Yeah. Yeah, so like having all of this like in the next couple of days, it's exciting. It's exciting to finally get into this space of like, for me personally, because I'm an earth sign, just being grounded, you know,
Okay.
and having like, those 10 toes down type of mentality, type of energy, knowing that again, things might not be in your control, but you got to be okay with that. You got to be adaptable. You have to be able to, take it, process it, and continue to move forward.
For sure. I mean, I try to do that every day, all the time, just understanding that
Right.
to control what you can control. You can't control everything, but with the aspect of what you can control, just try to make it the most as positive and productive as it can be in
Yeah.
that time. You know what I mean? Trying not to let so much negativity overwhelm or control what your next point of action is going to be. It's not the fact of like saying that you can't have a negative thought in your mind. It's just don't let it manifest enough to actually take action. Just absorb what it is and move on from it and make the best positive reaction from it. I do have a question though. Being that you are in theater and you perform poetry, which I feel like is a very raw and expressive emotion, do
Yeah.
you think that for yourself, it makes it easier, or is it more difficult for you to express yourself emotionally outside of an audience, like in your personal life? Do you think it's easier or more difficult, being that you have that?
Um, I think that it can go either way.
Mm-hmm.
So, me being a performer, I'm definitely in touch with expressing my emotions, but there's also, the level of emotions that people around you are capable of receiving, because
Mm-hmm.
being a performer means that I can over exaggerate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you need to do that for, if you're in the context of a theater, you have to do that for the people in the back row.
Got you.
They need to see these moments. But, when I'm in my personal life, it's it's a little different, because sometimes like I can feel, and I can, express, I can put out way more than someone who might not be as attuned with their emotions, or might not be as attuned with expressing it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it can be overwhelming for them,
Yeah.
so that's when it can get a little harder, because you know you have as a performer, you have on stage and you have off stage,
Yep.
but for people who don't perform, like, you know they're always off stage, so they don't really have an audience in mind when, they're just trying to express some things. But that's in some ways where it can be challenging, when it can be overwhelming to people on the receiving end of the emotions. But it can also be helpful, because as an artist, you have to articulate, you communicate to be understood, and
Makes
you
sense. Yep.
yeah, like there's ways that, in conversation or in communication, there's like certain practices, like fundamental practices that come up in your training, as
Mm-hmm.
a performer. So those are ways that it can be easier, just based on the fact that, and again, I can only speak for myself, not all
Yep.
like actors, but for me, like, I am a thorough person. So when it comes to communicating, and when it comes to like emotions, like, I find my training as like a performer can, it gives depth, it gives context, it gives like more of like I guess more dimension in
Hmm.
terms of like how I want to communicate, or like the ability to, converse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally understood. I did want to touch on something. You just brought up a good topic. You said like the ability to be able to be on stage and off stage, and being able to turn it off and turn it on. Have you ever had a time where you were off stage but you couldn't turn it off? Does that
Yeah.
kind of make sense? Like
Yeah.
how do?
Yes. My goodness. And to be perfectly honest, like that's another reason why I had to like I had to take like a step back from acting, because sometimes it's like you can put your all into this character, right?
Hmm.
And you can invest, and if you don't set up those boundaries, if you don't set up those safety measures for
Hmm.
yourself to come out of that,
Hmm.
then it stays with you. So a perfect example, well, a popularized example or mainstream example would be Heath Ledger, rest his soul, and the Joker.
Yes.
A lot of people were saying that was the role that killed him, because of how much he dove into it. He
Uh-huh.
did a damn good job,
For
you
sure.
know. So, and I don't know his personal life. I don't know what was happening. It's not for me to say that role ultimately did take his life.
Hmm.
But as an actor, as someone that had to like step into villainous roles, it can be tricky, as to setting that you know boundary for yourself, drawing that line for yourself. And that also just goes into your training as a performer, learning when to like, if you were the partner, if you were anyone else, you would have a safe word, right?
Hmm.
So then what do you do for yourself as an actor and your character? Because ultimately when you get onto stage, like that's you are the character, you know so it's needing to I think know yourself, and then know that work well enough to be like, okay, this is too far, and this is where I can push those limits a little bit more for my craft.
Totally understood. Okay. So you said draw the line. So how do you personally, how do you draw a line? How do you make it so that it's like I don't go too far ahead because I know I got to go real deep with this character, but this is how I stop myself from going too far. How do you draw that line?
Hmm. It's certain practices.
Okay.
I have, and a lot of them I think have to deal with me developing the character that I am them to embody.
Hmm.
Um, so my mentor from high school, he was saying that you don't really want to like, I forgot the right um like verbing or whatever
Hmm.
verbiage, but essentially it's like you want to take little pieces of yourself that you could put into the character, not necessarily you want to take that character and put it into you
Mm.
know because you still need to keep this safe, right? You
For
still need
sure.
to keep
Yep.
your temple safe. But at the end of the day, people are going to be seeing you. Like your family is going to be coming to see you on stage as somebody else.
Yeah.
So, there might be certain like, you know, um for me, like I like textures sometimes. So like I might be like fondling with my earring, or I might have like a crystal, or there's certain things like that I can go
Okay.
ahead and kind of like bring into the character,
Got you.
and have that like on film, on stage, whatever, whatever. But at the same time, for instance, like I did a play where I played the adulterous wife, and you know there she's snazzy, she's quick-witted, and she almost didn't get caught, but there's certain kind of like there's certain like actions and reactions or impulses or little like those micro isms, that I would kind of like develop and bring into that character that can, you know, I would have, in order for me to pill out, on stage. But I would need to know that even though like that common denominator of me, like I've never been like an adulterous wife, but I had to
Mhm.
portray one on stage,
Got you.
so I had to take these examples from my life to kind of bring in as like emotional fuel. So the trick is really having that separation of like, okay, what is it of Sharice that is going into this character? You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I had to remember that I can take those things home, but I can't take some of those characters impulses, reactions, mentality. Like I can't really take that embodiment of the character home because like that's not who I am.
Got you.
Yeah.
Interesting for sure. Yeah, I feel like it's definitely that's a real thin line. I feel like that can become difficult if you're not trained in knowing how to keep that boundary
Yep.
and not going over that line. I feel like another example for myself, which I wasn't around because I was very young, but I feel like they say like Tupac in his role in Bishop and Juice, like him after that role, they
Oh,
feel like after that he kind of betrayed that a little bit more and took that character out and he kind of embodied that a bit more. So that's like one of the examples I hear when I do think of that line not being crossed and possibly being crossed and the outcome of where it can get you. So yeah, for sure.
look at
That's
reality
interesting.
stars.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I said, look at reality stars.
Yeah.
They're paid to be themselves, yes. But there's also a storyline that they play into, you know. So being able to kind of separate that on stage, off stage, I think
Hmm.
also goes into your turning off, pardon me, turning off your ego
Hmm.
for the sake of your humility and for the
Mm.
sake of your character, really. Because like I take a lot of inspiration from my dad, and he is like he's top five like most humble, most modest,
Okay.
and I think he's that to a fault, which is something that I've like inherited from him. So sometimes, I'll have some people be like, "No, girl, you gotta do more," like and sometimes yes, sometimes no, it's based on what I feel.
Yep.
But in speaking to my dad and really having that that kind of wealth of humility,
Hmm.
it kind of puts into perspective like how I should be treating people, how I should be coexisting with my community, and from there it also like not only does it kind of like anchor me to my true self, but it also aids with that line, in that on stage, off stage. For instance, like I've performed more poetry in the past than I have like other scripts.
Okay.
Even going into my poetry, like my poetry isn't my diary, so like I'm also writing from a sense of like elaboration, and there's other things that like that I felt that I didn't live through, but it resonated with my soul,
For sure.
and it came across on paper as such. So it's needing to have that separation as well, even when it comes to my poetry, because like my poetry is a gift that I share with the world. And I mean that in the most humble sense, because I know when I share it, other people receive it and it does something to them. I also know that because other people's poetry do that for me.
Hmm.
So I'm just here to give back. and really having that, I think that separation from like yourself as an individual, you
Mhm.
know, from your art, even though the art comes from you, having that separation, I think is very important. Because
Mm.
otherwise, I think it builds a bridge for the ego. I think it builds a bridge for that performance when it might not always be necessary.
Interesting. Okay. Definitely, that does make sense. I never thought about it like that, but that definitely makes sense. You don't want to carry your quote unquote character around everywhere with you because then it becomes hard to decipher which one is which. Am I being the character or is the character being me? And you know what I mean? So I never thought about it like that, but that does make a lot of sense. Like I said, I'm sure it does become difficult. So being able to have that line and understanding how not to cross that has to be like very important. Okay. I was just thinking about something. Being that you are a poet, and poetry comes with a lot of wordsmith. Which is more important for yourself as being a poet? Is it the overall message, or is it the wording that I'm using in the message? Is that if that kind of makes sense? Like, which one is the most important? Is it?
Damn. You know that reminds me of which came first, chicken or egg?
Sure, yeah,
Because
yeah. That's what I was thinking about. Yep.
yeah, and uh I never thought of that, to be perfectly honest, because we can have a message wrapped up in offensive words,
Hmm.
and the offensive nature of the words is going to block people from the message that's very important,
Yep.
you know or you could have like some really really nice words, like you could have bars,
Hmm.
and like what are you really saying, you know
Exactly.
or and you can be saying something that's great, you know what I mean, but sometimes like the message is like, a PSA. It's a common known message. It's about like those bars though, like because that's another thing, like that you want to praise people for them for the wordplay, like how you like people, all these poets say it in such many great ways,
Yep.
but I think someone had called themselves a alchemist and
Mm.
a sorcerer of words, and I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, that sounds great. Because it's that's part of the charm of poetry is how you're able to verbalize it,
Yep.
you know which is another reason why, like, I love language, like I think it's such a amazing thing that we as humans have to connect over.
Hmm.
So hearing people switch from like English to Spanish, or even from like English to Creole, and like the way they mix up language, in poetry, is like another really important thing, because like, as you said, like your thoughts are powerful, your words are as well,
For
you know
sure.
because together those are the reality. So it's hard to say which one is more important, the message
Hmm.
or the
What the
word,
words? Yep.
because I think it's like one of my favorite answers is subjective. Like,
Understood. Understood.
yeah, I think it really depends on what you want to convey.
Yeah. Okay. I can understand that. Makes sense. It kind of okay. I can see the balance between the two for
Yeah.
sure. So when you were doing your audio book, as far as the poetry with the production behind it, did you have any examples, or did you look for any examples of what to go off of, or was it just
Yes.
something raw that you would just wanted to do? You know what I'm
Um.
saying? That you kind of
All right. So I think his name is Damon Johns.
okay.
I really hope I have his name right. I feel bad if I don't, but um, he's on Shark Tank.
Okay.
Fubu. He's
I
a
know you're
creator of
talking about.
Fubu.
Yep,
So
exactly. Yeah, I forgot his name, but I know you're talking about. Okay.
yeah, so Damon, right?
Yep.
So he came out with a motivational album. Have you heard it?
I have not heard it.
All
I gotta
right.
go check that out.
Yeah, because that was one of my inspirations. I heard it and it's just like, he's just in here and he's just like, success is mandatory. It's a lifestyle. And like, yay, go do it. Like, I forget what he was saying, but it sounded really good. And
Got you.
like, like the music behind it, it was just like, yo, this is a whole, like, I close my eyes and I'm in this whole world of like, Damon's imagination. Like,
Hmm.
and that was a home run for me. So that, in addition to the fact that I think it was back in 2015
Hmm.
when I randomly met a producer through an old coworker. Like,
Okay.
and it was funny too because he's known to be very persistent. Carter Music. So
Okay.
we first met, had a mutual friend. I just like finished rapping. I finished rapping a film. No, I
Okay.
don't think it was that day. I think we just did like one day of shooting. So I was in the neighborhood. I went to my old job, sitting at the bar. One of my old coworkers, he had his friend, and then he was like, "You need beats?" I was like, "No, I don't." And then he was like, "Okay, but if you need beats, I'm your guy." And so, like the three of us just chatting, like vibing, have cool conversation, everything like that. Um, the meeting ended by we exchanged emails.
Okay.
So I had sent him, I think, a 3-minute poem, and he sent it back to me, scored magnificently, and
Mhm.
just it was original. It sounded like a movie. It was just epic. It's exactly what my poetry needed. And like, I barely gave him notes. I just gave him an acapella track. you know
Yeah.
so between having that track from him and then also Damon's album, I'm just
Hmm.
like, okay, all right, I think we're on some pretty good steps here, like, cool. But see, Wanda, he has his own style.
Yep.
So that's when it really came to be about, like, taking influences without copying and pasting.
Okay.
Like, obviously I'm not going to take the original beats, but like the style of the beats was essentially going to be a copy and paste. That
Okay.
like epic and like close my eyes and visualize and like everything
Yep.
like that. Versus C Wonder, he has more of like a lo-fi type of um tone, you know,
Okay.
style. And of course, like, it could be adapted. Um, but for me, like, I'm a movie nerd. Like, I like, you know, the dramatics, and I like being able to see a whole production when you close your
Hmm.
eyes. So, he sent me over a couple of tracks, and like, I was cool with it, but I had like a lot of notes. But the first time, like, when we sat down in the studio and he was just like, "What do you want?" I was like, X, Y, and Z. He was like, "All right, boom, I'll match it with the A, B, and C." And I'm just like,
Yep.
whoa, okay. And it kind of just like took on its own, flow.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah. So after a while, just building on like what was there, still having those influences was that was the name of the game.
Okay. It sound like a it sound like a pretty long process. How long did it take for you to finish it, as far as from start to finish, roughly,
It
would you
took a
say?
while. I'd say about a year,
Okay.
because it's also like my project wasn't our full-time job.
Got you.
So there's time management, there's you know having I think time management was the biggest thing. Like, if we weren't going about like once a week.
Hmm.
It probably would have been completed in less than a year. But,
Got you.
you're talking about like creating original scores and then readjusting them so everything sounds like cohesive. Like another inspiration I had was the Dream. So when he
Hmm.
had like the love versus money, and I think love hate was another one. Like,
Yep.
yeah, so around like those around that era, I loved how his album, like, you could hear one song and it wasn't just a crossfade. There were instruments that were common denominators bringing you into the next song. And
Got you.
then, you're probably into the chorus of the next song when you realize that's a whole nother track.
Yep.
So that's what I wanted, and I'm very particular. So
Hmm.
like there were times when, like, we spent, oh my gosh, shout out to that guy, because like shout out to C Wanda, because we spent hours trying to work out like a simple chord, right? And
Yep.
then I would hear it again, and I'm just like, nope. Nope.
That's
you
not
know
it.
no, but honestly, like, it isn't that what it's about though, right?
Sure.
Finding
Yeah.
it. Like, it is where you have longevity. Like, it is part of like the timelessness. So, like, us spending all that time just to find it, I think is like the greatest thing that came from it. Because again, I'm not making something just so I have something to put out.
Exactly.
Like, I'm making it because it's part of my mark that I leave on the artistic culture. I'm making it with the intentions that like my grandchildren are going to have this to refer to, and it still resonates with them just based on like the authenticity that comes from it.
Okay.
It's, for me, like, I'll I'll be crazy for the sake of finding it,
Hmm.
because that's what you want to, in my opinion, that's what I would want to exude as an artist, so I can
Got you.
continue to inspire and kind of just like, keep it out here.
Definitely. I mean, live forever. So you want it to age as well as possible. So if you hear it 5, 6, 10, 20 years from now, somebody's new hearing it, it kind of has that ageless feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely understand that for sure. So I know the project is under 25, a poet love story,
Poetic
right?
love story, yeah.
A poetic love story for sure. And like some of the tracks that were on there is Pedestal, Wanted, Beginning, Middle, Beastly Beauty, and Black and Beautiful. What was the first song that you recorded off of that one? Out of all of those songs, do you recall? What was the
uh
first one that you recorded?
I think the first one was Beginning. So,
Yeah, okay,
yeah, so
just the title and name, Beginning.
yeah, so it makes sense, right? So, Under 25, A Poetic Love Story, is the name of
Hmm.
the book. And the short film that I worked on is Volume One, Poetic Love Story Volume One. And it comes with the first five poems that you mentioned. Black and Beautiful is like a bonus. So,
Got you.
um, Beginning was the first one that I recorded, and that was some of the poems that I started writing in 2014, shortly after Barbara passed. And
Mm.
I learned that I'm kind of good at writing. So,
Yeah.
I recorded the beginning, middle, and end with Brian. And then actually when I was in Detroit visiting Brian, I wrote Pedestals, and
Okay.
I recorded that shortly after. And then I want to say about a year later, I wrote Beastly Beauty. So
Okay.
um I had this idea that I wanted to make a visual EP um with my poetry, and then I started making the music. And actually, I'm just noticing this now, but the day I met Carter, um I had wrapped with a day of filming on my friend Jeff Frummis. So he's a video
Hmm.
director, and he wrote his first feature film. He wrote a part for With Me in Mind. And I was in it. It's called Romeo's Distress. It's on Amazon Prime. So
Okay.
um you you I I did the film. I learned a lot. I had a great time. And Jeff was like, "Listen, you really came through for me. And if you ever need, like a video guy, you got me in your pocket." I was like, "All
Definitely.
right, cool." 4 years later, I hit up Jeff. I'm like, "Jeff, it's time." Like I got the Avengers like music in the background and everything. Like, I'm ready for it because I wanted to make like this visual story with a selection of a few poems. So beginning, middle, and end is a love story. um
Okay.
it speaks to a soulful connection when you meet someone that has the same light as you. And it speaks to some of those sensations that take over when you know that you're seen, that you're not alone, that you have a partner. So the beginning, middle, and end, it has its it has its tones and everything. Pedestals kind of came as like an introductory type of piece,
Hmm.
so speaking from that individual. And then beginning and middle kind of going into those like what it's like to be as a pair. Wanted is separate from the trilogy, but I
Hmm.
thought it was a great highlight in that manifestation of love. It's like a soliloquy, so to speak.
Hmm.
In that what you want to put out there, what it is that like what it is that you actually want.
Yep.
And then it goes into so Petals is that introductory, it goes into Wanted, and then you go into beginning and
Beginning. Uh-huh.
middle. Yeah, middle, everything is good. And I saved that for the book. So
Okay.
I capped it with Beastly Beauty. So Beastly Beauty I like is because kind of switching on them. Like Beastly Beauty is the um it's like a profession of love from the stalker. So it's the idea of like how that allure of someone can kind of get into the inner workings of someone else's head. And
Hmm.
again, how can that be expressed from the person that's not on stage, that's not the performer?
Hmm.
It can come across in a different way. So I like it. I like ending it like that because we go from this whole like from this person, and now this person in love, and now these people in love, and then like someone completely different kind of like
Yeah.
over the hedges like, are you ready for me? Are you ready? So Jeff is an amazing director. Like I look at Jeff as kind of like a cross between Tarantino and Hitchcock. Just
Okay.
like he has this quirky type of like, he has like that different style, like he shoots in noir and I love it.
Hmm.
And he'll have that like gory type of like horror type of films and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I'm quirky, I'm dramatic, I'm kind of like big, and I just come from like more of like the bubbly sunshine type of side, so like
Understood.
having like the two of us together in relation to like all the tones that I bring up in the poetry, from like the first type of like introductory or a manifestation piece, even going into the end of like, we got shots from like, that stalker perspective outside trying to duck and not, not get caught.
Yep.
So, that's volume one of um and that's five poems.
Yep.
So I that's the beginning of my dreams within the film poetry production, you know,
Okay.
space, you know.
As far as the film goes, I haven't seen it. Is it something that's out, or is it something that's still in production that you guys are working on, or what's kind of the status of the film so far?
The status of the film at this point, it just needs to be released. So
Okay.
um as to be a little transparent, marketing hasn't always been my strong suit.
Understood. Mine's as well. I'm still working on it, so
Yeah.
totally
So,
understood.
I have it, and
Okay.
initially I wanted to premiere it for my birthday event, but
Okay.
you know, I I don't want to premiere it on Zoom, and sure, I can put it on YouTube, and I can put it on Instagram, and I just haven't decided what will be like the best way to put it out.
Gotcha.
That also goes to like me kind of thinking a lot into it as an artist. Like it also goes back to what my friend Brian says. Shout out to Reckless. So what Brian says also, he's like, you could have a gemstone, right? I love these stones. Like he said, you could have a stone and you could polish it as much as you want. That doesn't change the fact that it's a polished stone. So
Mm,
he was relating it to my art. Like you can try and make it as perfect as you want. That doesn't change the fact that it's your art. You know,
yep.
people are still going to connect with it. Your intentions are still going to be conveyed just based on the integrity of art that's in it.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so what I did is I have like snippets on my Instagram,
Hmm.
and then I have there was one day when I put I think I put beginning on my story, and I wanted to see what people thought of it, but in a way that like it it it's still like exclusive. You can only see it for 24 hours.
Exactly.
And I think what I had released was like a 3-minute track. So you got to stick through a lot of videos to watch the
Yep.
whole thing. So seeing everybody that watched the whole thing and then like DM me afterwards, I'm like, okay, 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 I like that. I like that. So at this point, it's just a matter of you know, putting it out the way that I am, but putting it out in the way that it actually gets out.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
and
makes
not
sense.
overthinking it. Yeah, initially, it's part of a bundle, which is the book and the merchandise and the music and the movie. So
Okay.
there's still that, but um, aside from the bundle as a standalone, I think it's also great. So having putting that out there in a way that's accessible is probably going to be the next step.
Okay, I'm definitely excited. I want to take a look at it. I enjoyed the actual album. I listened to it quite a few times, so for sure, I want to see the actual visual that goes along with it. I'm sure it'll be great.
Yeah.
As meticulous as you've seen with making sure everything is perfect, I'm sure it's going to be synced right in, and it's going to be for sure a great
Yeah.
piece. I'm excited. I'm excited for sure.
Yeah.
So so being that you've been in the theater world and also like doing acting and with the music and with poetry, and you have a good amount of experience with that now, being in it for years, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago as a lesson to yourself, as far as trying to something that you're thinking about doing 10 years later into the now? What kind of lessons would you give yourself that you learned along the way?
Oh wow. What I would give myself 10 years ago: be consistent. Be consistent. Um, 10 years ago, I didn't think I was gonna be talking to you about a book that I wrote and a movie that I filmed and a full audio book that like I co-produced. You
Mm,
know, but those one thing about me is if I have an idea and more than likely it's going to be stuck in my head. I'm
yeah.
not going to stop until I see it through, and it usually doesn't take me that long. You know, it's just a matter of being consistent after that. You
Hmm.
know, and having that proper follow through, follow up. You know, so that would definitely be my advice for Sharice 10 years ago is to be consistent and stick with it because it gets
Okay.
tough.
I can
Definitely
totally
gets
understand.
tough.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's, and I mean, and nothing that is worth having and worth wanting to do is gonna be easy, right?
Right.
It's gonna be some bit of challenge. It all your character, and what builds you from it is how you adjust from it and the end result. You know,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
yeah, I definitely respect that consistency. That's always a key with anything. You gotta definitely be consistent, work hard, and stick with it. I mean, nothing's wrong with having an abundant amount of ideas. Just make sure you follow through on them all in a timely manner.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like you can have all these ideas and you can do everything. You just got to do it like one thing at a time. So
Mm,
that's another thing that I've learned over the years because you know, I have some pretty lofty goals and that's one of the things that kind of keep me going, you know?
hmm.
And being able to kind of step into the big picture and have your starting point. It's like, oh my goodness. So, you know, when you have like all these dots and then you connect it all together and it's like a picture,
For sure.
that's kind of like how my goals are. You know, but it's like I find myself sometimes jumping from like 1 to like 33 to like 24 and 17 and then I'm at 2. And I was like, boom, I got 1 and 2. Okay, like
There we
so
go.
33 is kind of like close, right? Like you know, so being able to connect the dots um with the right direction, you know,
Okay.
and then we make mistakes, we're human, right? You know, we can do that. So also having that proper rebound, you know,
Mm,
I'm an emotional artist, you know, and my emotions can kind of get me down sometimes. So like also having that proper rebound so I'm not, you know, like kind of like stuck at
okay.
so much so that I can't go through with, you know, going to dot number 3 and then number 4 and ultimately like, you know, making out that big picture, which is something that like I have no problem seeing. You know,
Mm,
it's just being able to connect that big picture dreams to the reality of you know, what I'm looking
for sure. Okay. I definitely like that for sure. I did have one other question. So at a theater, right? And with the poetry and getting involved in the music, what would you say would be like the most difficult that you had to find in adjusting with, and why was that for you?
at. So music is a big part of my happiness.
Mm,
Um, in addition to co-producing, I also took more singing lessons.
okay.
I needed to learn how to control my voice and gain more confidence in sounding like Charisse and not sounding like other like musical influences that I have. So I think that was the hardest for me in terms of like the music aspect, really developing, my confidence as like a vocalist, because there's also hearing the notes, recognizing them, understanding what they are. And then, a lot of vocalists are musicians, so they're able to match their voice instrument with a handheld one, or, piano, guitar, whatever it is. Like I have a
Hmm.
ukulele. So like
Okay.
the these are things that are very much in my spirit, but it's still new to my mind. And I think it's because it's much more new, and it's a whole nother like area of performance that I don't have that much confidence in just yet. Like that is the hardest part. Me being in theater, me being on stage, me being the actor, the performer, or even the producer. It was a little um easier to me because it's also the difference as a producer versus a vocalist. It's like the difference between like that performance kind of like anxiety to
Okay.
like like you're at your workstation in your vibe creating magic. But I mean, as you said, if it's easy, then well, things that are hard are usually like, you know they're well worth it.
For sure.
You endured that for a reason.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like if it's too easy, it's probably not worth it. You know what I mean? You don't enjoy it as much. You don't look back at the accomplishment and look at everything it took to get it, and those remembrances and what built that character for you to get at that end result. So I definitely think that's important for sure. I'm even listen. I'm excited. I can't wait. Like I said, I can't wait to see the visual. Can't wait for you to put it out. I know
Yeah,
you've been doing a lot of work so far, so I can't wait to see how everything turns out, and I hope that you get the result that you're looking for when it does actually release for sure.
thank
Um,
you.
no problem at all. Let the people know how they can get in contact with you and how they can see everything you've done thus far. Just some of the different ways to get connected with you.
Yeah, you could always follow me. Chareseannel. Instagram is my biggest, like, that. It's my most used platform. Um,
Okay.
and then poetbynature.com is my
Okay.
website. So you can definitely check out some more written, audio, visual, order stuff. Like that's my online page. Um Other than that, I like to keep my head down and keep it going.
For sure, totally understood. Again, I thank you for joining us. I
Oh my
definitely
pleasure.
appreciate it. I'm sure the people out there watching are going to enjoy this. It was definitely an enlightening conversation, and I had a great time, a great experience. I feel like I learned a lot just by listening to you. If I was getting in the theater and looking to go into poetry, I think I would be able to know the direction that might be right for me. Just off this
Yeah.
conversation.
Well, listen, I hope if this conversation inspired like anybody at all, please let the takeaway be just to believe in yourself. It gets hard, so believe in yourself. And I'm glad
Definitely.
that I'm here to be a testament for that.
For sure, for sure. I definitely appreciate you. For everybody that came out and enjoyed the episode, appreciate you guys. Feel free to like the video, leave
Yes,
a comment, let us know what you think. It's for sure. My Instagram is at Keir Scott 914. Feel free to follow me if you don't already do so. And we thank you for joining us. We hope you have a great evening.
you
Thank
too.
you.
You too. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye bye.